wanted to ask you also about you must have some way of doing research, because I'm intimidated by great YA, because even when I spend time with teens, I don't feel confident that I can reproduce their voices. And I think I mentioned earlier that I write detective fiction. And as we've been talking, I have deducted that you are not a teenager.
I am
So
not. I am not.
somewhere there, you must be doing some kind of research, keeping current, because you've got them. You've got text conversations going back and forth, very convincing between two teens. So how are you doing that research to keep current with what's going on?
I am young at heart. I don't research. I am a really big fan of pop culture, and I keep myself immersed in it just naturally. I do have a 16-year-old daughter, but all of my books have been written outside of my kids being that age. When I wrote my series, I think my oldest daughter was only 9, and then my youngest daughter wasn't even born. And then when I wrote So Done, that was 2018. So my youngest daughter, she would have only have been maybe 8 herself. No, well, I don't know. I'm really bad at math, which is why I write. My point is that I don't really, I don't eavesdrop on teens. I just, I know Black teens well enough. I've been around them enough. I've been one. I am comfortable with creating slang if I don't want to use current slang, because it's really just about how you use it. Slang is just, shortened language, right? It's just a vibe. And I'm very comfortable creating that vibe between my characters. I don't worry about, hey, are kids saying this anymore? I never worry about that. I write what I think these characters, I write how I think they would speak. And I think most of the time, I hope that the story flows enough that people can suspend their belief long enough to say, okay, this is how these particular characters talk, and not try to connect it to, do other teenagers talk that way? I just, I just never worry about it.
Well, it makes sense. I mean, even teens that are reading the novel, they know how teens around them talk. Although now that they're all on Zoom, thanks to quarantine for COVID-19, maybe they have a whole new perspective on worldwide teenagers. But up to this point, you don't know that the next town over, or wherever the cove is, you don't know that they're not talking that way there.
Yeah. It's just, it comes natural to me. But again, it's because I'm a consumer of pop culture. So, I like to watch certain things, and it's not so much research as it is, it's what I enjoy watching to turn my brain off. So it doesn't, it's not hard to kind of stay in that mindset. But also I really, I always enjoy I enjoy writing about teens, because when you're 13 or 14 years old, there's still a lot of discovery there, not just about your surroundings, but about who you are. And I just enjoy writing about that. So.
Do you do, when you're not, on deadline and working the day job all day and everything else, do you do a lot of reading of YA novels still?
I try to. What I tend to do is I binge read. When I have free time, I'll try and buy like 3 or 4 books or 5 books and try to read them in like a span of a couple of days. And that sort of refreshes me and keeps me kind of grounded in the type of writing that I do. But it's difficult to do that when I'm under contract, because I also don't like to fill my head with that many voices. And so it can be difficult to read anything even close to what I write. So I like to read horror or mystery, like I try to go so opposite of everything that I write, just so that reading can actually be enjoyable. Because if I'm reading the same type of stuff that I write, then I start processing, like, my brain turns off and I start breaking down sentences like, oh, that was interesting. You know, like I can't enjoy it because now I'm working. So, but yes, I do go on a couple of good binges when I can.
And I've learned to stop asking this question because it's a first class way to, the next time you go to an author event, how'd you like to be alienated from the other YA authors there? So I'm not going to ask you what YA authors do you most like to read. That's crazy. But who are some authors who are, you know, above, larger than life, above reproach, that we can all agree are amazing, who have, you think, maybe most influenced your work?
The authors who have influenced my work are not going to surprise you, just because I think any person of a certain age were influenced by these same people. In particular, Mildred Taylor, the author of Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry, was a big influence on me as a reader, and she is one of the reasons that I'm able to be very comfortable writing very earnest fiction. That word was a word that an agent said about my work when I was submitting So Not the Drama. She said, I really like it. It's a bit too earnest for me. And I thought, is that a bad thing these days? Like I didn't know. So it made me realize what she was saying was that, you know, that I tend to, you know, really get real about what my characters are going through. And I guess she just, you know, she wanted something that was a little less complex maybe. But I wear that as a badge of honor because Mildred Taylor was that type of writer. You can't write about the hardcore racism and segregation like she did in that book. And the main character of Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry was 9 years old. And when you think about what happens in that book and think about the age of the intended reader, it's like, wow, you have to be an excellent author in order to carry that off. And she did. I mean, that book is beloved. So she is a huge influence. And then the other one is Judy Blume, because I grew up reading all of her books. She too has this way of being incredibly honest with the reader and the ability to get into her young character's head and make you feel what they're feeling. So reading those two women, I like to think that my writing is similar to them, just in that I'm not afraid to put any topic in front of a young reader because I feel like I can be trusted with putting that information in front of them in a way that won't harm them, but will help them feel seen and, you know, reflected.
Well, realistically, if you sat down a book in front of a 12, 13-year-old American teenager, they're not going to go, gasp, racism is a thing in America? Really? I can't even believe what I'm seeing. Mind blown.
I believe you're right.